Hey guys, welcome to the Birdbrain podcast where the goal is to rise above it all, stay elevated, create that infinity up your you. Today's episode is going to be great and something I definitely needed to hear, and that just happened. And we're going to talk about the recipe of life and building and what it looks like. Shout out to my mom for bringing this all into perspective for me. And I want to share this with you guys. So before we get there, if you like what you hear, of course, and you're on iTunes, hit up iTunes, subscribe, rate, review. Any comment you leave goes a long way. Any rating you leave goes a long way. And we're just trying to get more ears listening to this good vibe or good vibes, plural. And if you want to support the podcast further and you also want to get some perks out of it, head on over to patreon.com/the Birdbrain podcast. And there are different tiers that you can support. And each one has a different reward. So without further ado, pull out a notebook.
Rise above it all.
Stay tuned.
Stay elevated. And create that infinity of your you. Of your you.
Hey guys, welcome. How are you? How's your week been? How's your October been? October is, I'm just putting it out there, my favorite month. So if you guys are into horror and you haven't tuned in yet, check out The Night Owl, because I've been releasing 2 episodes. I'm going to release 2 episodes a week for the duration of October leading up to Halloween. And Halloween is going to be something special. So yeah, how's your week and everything been? My week last week was a lot because I was sick, so I had a lot of time to one, work, but also process and just really sit still. It's so funny whenever I get sick, I still try to work through it. But the funny thing is like something that happened that'll really kind of put me in place. No matter how resilient I try to be, it's still one of those things where it's like, no, we're going to sit you down for a second. So that was last week, and it was an interesting week because I had a chance to go sit at the beach for a little bit and just really take in what is at this very moment, where I am, what I have, who I have, and just how I got here. So I was talking to my mom on Saturday. And we were just chatting. And she asked me, every now and then she'll ask me, she's like, "Oh, do you plan on staying in California?" And I'm like, "Yeah." It's a no-brainer for me at this point. But I tell her, I'm like, there's always, I don't plan to necessarily stay where I am in this very moment, but there is some place I can find or discover that will feel like my spot. And up until now, where I've been is kind of like where I should be in the moment. We got to talking, and I said to her, I was like, it's so funny. I never felt at peace in Jersey. I was like, I always felt out of place, like I didn't belong in New Jersey. She was like, hold up. She was like, I'm gonna stop you right there. She was like, it wasn't that you felt out of place in New Jersey. It was more you feeling like there wasn't anything in New Jersey that had anything to offer you up until this point. You wanted things different, so you left and to find that. And she goes, at one point, she was like, you know what? That's why you like to bake. She's like, that's why you like to bake. She's like, you're the baker's man. She broke it down, and this is what blew my mind. She goes, you're the type of person that is willing to watch a process and go through a process. You're not eager to rush. You You enjoy the process of making something happen and then seeing the final outcome. And, she goes, you had the opportunity, or you've had many opportunities, I'm sure, that could have put you in a better situation almost instantly. And, she's not lying. I've had opportunities where I've could have had, the monetary benefits and everything like that, but it's not necessarily what I wanted or how I wanted to get it. So she goes, you rather struggle and and fight through things to get the ideal kind of outcome that you want. She's like, you're willing to do that, and that's why you like to bake, because you're all about a process. You're not going to turn an oven up to 400 to make sure things get done quicker. You're going to wait it out, and you're going to go through it. And the entire time, you're not really going to worry about how things are going to come out. You're just going to be like, yeah, I knew all along things were going to be fine. So when she said that to me, I don't know what it did, but it definitely put me in a different mindset of just how I navigate. And I think it changes the narrative, or it changes the narrator of the story. And you stop seeing yourself as this, well, for me at least, I'll speak on me. I've stopped seeing myself as someone that's constantly going through this treacherous journey. And I'm like, man, when does it all make sense? And instead is like, this is the journey I've chose because this is the journey I'm sure is going to work for me. And I like to bake. So I'm down to get all the ingredients, all the pieces, and build from there and start from scratch and keep going. And the reason why is because for me it's more rewarding. And I have a process that I go through, even when I cook or bake. And I tell people all the time, it's like, I love to cook, and more so I love to bake. And while baking is all about precision, I do make it a point to find certain recipes that I enjoy, and I modify them to make it my own. So it's like, putting a little bit of me into it. And in life, that's how I operate. I put all of me into a situation, a goal, and I just go from there. And I'm willing to roll up my sleeves and do what's necessary. She's like, you're the baker's man. And that was pretty cool to hear that, and to have that metaphor, analogy, just have her use that as a concept that really sunk in for me, because I was like, you know what? I do like to bake, and I'm very much determined to make things happen and bring all the pieces together to make something awesome that I can share with other people, because when I bake, I don't bake for me, I bake for other people. And that's what life has been. I'm just gathering ingredients and mixing it all up and just making whatever I can out of it that will actually be able to help somebody else, or not help somebody, or, have somebody else enjoy it. Not just myself. It's something I want to be able to share. Then there was another conversation I was having with my buddy Joe when we were shooting a little short, and the conversation of, what was it? We were talking about patience. He goes, patience is a virtue. I was like, yeah, you know what? That's been the one thing I've wrestled with. And then I correct myself. I'm like, you know what? No, that's not it. I'm a very patient person. Sometimes to a fault, but I'm a very patient person. It's not patience that I have an issue with, it's the doubt. So then it kind of hit me that whenever someone's impatient, or whenever you're impatient about something, it's because you doubt that you are going to be successful in the outcome. Impatience means that you feel that there's a lack of power in the situation, and if you don't have immediate results, or the result at a certain amount of time, you're powerless, or you lose control over what's going on. That's what impatience is. And impatience is tied to fear. It's tied to doubt. And when there's fear, that's also a thing. Fear means that there's a lack of trust. Think about with love. When you love something or someone, the fear of not having them is very evident of a lack of trust there. A lack of trust in that they are going to be there, or that the relationship is going to last. So it becomes a thing of possession, so to speak. And we got in this whole conversation. It was dope. And we talked about the essence of the things that you don't want, or the things that you say you don't want, you kind of welcome in to your life with the people that you deal with, or the situation that you deal with. If you are used to being in a dynamic where you're not valued or appreciated, you gravitate towards people that are familiar. You gravitate towards people that reinforce those feelings. So you gravitate towards people that are emotionally unavailable, people that may be emotionally immature, people who cannot satiate your needs at all. And the funny thing about it is no one's responsibility to do that. It is definitely yours. You know, self-care, self-love, that's always a topic of discussion, but I don't think people understand the real core of what self-care means, you know, what self-love represents. And that means being willing to, I think self-care and self-love means being willing to, one, check yourself on your own shit and your own insecurities, but also when something doesn't feel good anymore, being willing to cut off that connection, cut those ties, and not necessarily looking back. The one lesson my mom, she always told me, was to show up right the first time, or do it right the first time. And it was all about, you know, the way she told it to me was when it came to cleaning or doing something or putting something together. Do it right the first time so you don't have to go back and do it over. And I apply that principle to my relationships. I show up properly the first time. I show love the first time, because by the time I stop, there's no looking back for me. There's no regrets. I've learned everything I needed to from the situation, and now I've moved on. And I think a lot of times the relationships that we cultivate, or from what I've seen in, you know, talking to other people, is there's this hot and cold game that we play with other people. And that's where the regret comes from, because you didn't necessarily show up right the first time. It became a game. It became a power struggle. It became a who has more to lose in the situation, and it's all about who cares more and who cares less. For me, I don't want to play those games. And the reason why is because I know my heart, and I know that there is, while it's patient, my heart is patient and I'm patient, there are certain limitations I have, and there are certain things I'm not willing to experience and endure. I show up the first time. I show love the first time. And then whatever happens from there, I move. I move either forward with the person, or I move away from the person. And a thought I had last night too was that when it comes to, you know, you hear, my heart is never going to be the same again after this person, so on and so forth. No one should have that power over your heart. You know, your heart works day in and day out. Even while you're asleep, your heart is working 24/7 to make sure you wake up at night, to make sure you are properly functioning throughout the day. Why should anyone control what your heart does at any given time? The only change someone should have when it comes to your heart, the only change that someone should be able to make to your heart, is their place in it based on their actions. That's the only change someone should have in terms of your heart, and the decisions made is where they fall in it or out of it. And that's, again, with fall, I think maybe it's the time zone, the time zone, the changing of times. I don't know. Something kind of internally happens to me around this time of year where I just kind of sit a little bit more still, and I process things, and I look at things, and I let changes happen. I don't care how painful they may be. I know on the other side of it, I'm good. That's why I'm willing to bake. That's why I'm willing to get the ingredients and start from scratch, because when it's all said and done, I know I'm going to be fine. And the reason why is because I work to make things that way. And that's in every situation. Again, I've been very honest lately in terms of conversations that I've had. And for me, it just allows me to see who I'm talking to on the other side. You know, you'll find you'll figure out what your value is to someone else when you have a conversation about your honest feelings and what you feel. If they're defensive, then you know. If they are looking to kind of change their behavior and be a little bit more cognizant of how it makes you feel, then you know. Value is I feel like value is a learned trait. It's not something that everyone has, and the reason why is because there are people who never really had to recognize value in what they've had, because there was no struggle or work to get those things. There was no them making things from scratch. It was them watching somebody else do it. So their concept of working, their concept of scarcity, their concept of gathering ingredients to make something isn't there because they've never had to do it. And that's what I've been realizing. And it allows me to not be as upset or frustrated with certain outcomes. It's just me accepting things for what is. There's no good or bad. It's just is. And I guess once you get to that place, once you're patient with yourself, for one, and you're patient with other people, and you're willing to kind of process what's happening and not really have expectations of what you want. Once you set the expectation that, I'm clarity. I'm looking for clarity in any situation. Once you have that, you eliminate frustration. Once you kind of approach a situation and it's not about playing games, not about pointing fingers, it's just about clarity, your whole dynamic changes, and the whole essence of a power struggle, who comes out on top, does not matter. The whole essence of a power struggle, that doesn't matter anymore. You take that out of the equation. And I also say all the times is like, we all have feelings, we all have thought processes, and all of our feelings matter to us. But there are a lot of times that other people's feelings are not taken into consideration. So it's this is all coming full circle. It's all about, one, being a mirror, reflecting kind of the person you are, the person you want to be, and reflecting how you want to be treated, putting that out there to other people. 1, 2, being willing to see things for what they are and not necessarily for what you want them to be. That's 2. 3, when it comes to your heart, understanding that you should protect your heart and value your heart because it's probably been through a lot of things, but it still beats every day and it's consistent. Never change anything that's working or anything that's consistent. Change the things that are inconsistent. 4, in terms of patience, if you're patient, that means that you trust. You trust what's happening to you. You trust what the process is going to lead to. And you trust your own capabilities of everything. Those 4 things, the 4 horsemen, let's call it that. Those 4 things all matter. And, they all kind of compose a person. They make a person. And, when my mom was telling me, she was like, I'm the baker's man. I told her, I was like, it's so funny because anywhere you go, you're always prepared. You are prepared for any given situation. I was like, when she packs, she always has everything. And I've gotten to that point where it's like, I make sure I have every little thing. Sometimes I'm missing stuff, but I learned how to pack and I learned how to travel like my mom does. She would always keep a blanket in the car just in case something happened. She just always was prepared. And I guess being a mom and taking care of your cubs, that's a thing you have to do. You have to prepare. But she always was prepared. And I try to do that, even if it's not in a practical sense, I try to do that emotionally and mentally. Just prepare myself. And nothing, again, not for good or bad, but just prepare myself for the next step. Yeah. Let me see if I can find this quote that she said, because I thought it was pretty funny. I was like, I definitely got to share this with the homies. She says, you want the blended flavor shit. You smell all the ingredients. You want the blended flavor shit. You want to go through the process and bake. You rather struggle and starve than rush the process. You know that things are going to work out, so you don't rush. Her thing, she says she's always prepared for takeoff, and I'm prepared for the landing all at the same time. Those are just little quips of the conversation I had with her on Saturday. always being prepared for the takeoff and always being prepared for the landing. So any way you spin it, somebody is prepared for what's about to go down. And for me, it's just I enjoy, or I'm capable of watching a process and rolling up my sleeves and doing the work to make something come to fruition. I love that. I enjoy it. You guys are going to see, the fruits of that labor soon, very soon. They're already in motion, and I'm excited to share those parts with you, but also it's just a great reminder to myself. There's a reason I like to bake. There's a reason I like to cook, because I'm willing to go through the process. And then I have something to share to other people, or I have something to share with other people. And that all comes from my experiences up until now and how I see them, so I hope this all kind of congeals together. I hope all these ingredients make sense to you in terms of just how to navigate life and people, because we're not in that space anymore of just tolerating things that don't fit anymore, just for the sake of having either company, just for the sake of history, just for the sake of loyalty. Because a lot of times you could be loyal to your own burdens. You ever think that? You can be loyal to your own pain. You could be loyal to your identity that was created from some hardships and some traumatic experiences. You could be loyal to those without realizing it. So if there's any form of betrayal you're going to make or practice, betray those traumas, betray those hardships, and recognize that you don't have to be loyal to those things at all. Step forward and be willing to get your own ingredients, like the little red hen. Bake your damn self. Make things happen for yourself and be proud of it. If it's from scratch, it's worth it, because it means that your time and energy will put into it. And most of all, be patient. Trust yourself and trust the process. Let things do what they're going to do. Wish you guys an amazing week. And yeah, I would love to hear from you. So you can follow me on the Birdbrain podcast on Instagram as well as Twitter. Come hang out in the Podcast Junkie Discord server if you're on Discord. And you can listen to us Spotify, iTunes, Red Circle, Stitcher, Podchaser, Google Play, YouTube. We're on YouTube. So there's so many ways you could start your day or end it, whatever time you like to listen to podcasts. But yeah, I'd love to hear your feedback. And I come to sit down at the end and beginning of every week to share just some perspective of how I got through it with you guys, because I'm not unique. And there are certain times when if you can reach out to somebody in some way, shape, or form, let them know, hey, it's all good, we're in this together, do that. It's worth it, and it goes a long way. I love you guys, and I hope you have an amazing ass week. Take flight.